Tiny desktop PCs just keep getting more ridiculous. Today we are looking at the GMKtec M7 Ultra, specifically the 32GB RAM and 1TB SSD model. This is a palm-sized box with an AMD Ryzen 7 Pro 6850U processor and Radeon 680M graphics that promises to replace your bulky desktop, run your games, handle content creation, and even serve as a mini home lab. But does this little cube actually deliver desktop-class performance, or is it just another noisy toy box? Let us dive in and find out. Opening the box, the first thing you see is the M7 Ultra itself, wrapped and protected in cardboard. Underneath, you get a basic quick start guide, a VESA mount with screws so you can hide this behind a monitor, an HDMI cable, the power adapter, and the power cable. Picking up the M7 Ultra, the first impression is just how dense and solid it feels. The chassis is mostly plastic, with ventilation grills along the sides and back, and a slightly stylized top panel that helps it look more premium than a plain black box. On the front and rear, you immediately notice the serious I/O for such a small machine, and we will break that down in a moment. Design-wise, the M7 Ultra keeps things minimal and functional. The case measures roughly 132 by 125 by 58 millimeters, so it's about the footprint of a stack of CD cases, just a bit taller. The outer shell is plastic, which helps with weight, and the twist-off top has a gap with the body to improve airflow. Around the chassis, you get ventilation on multiple sides, feeding a dual-fan hyper-ice chamber cooling system. This is important because the Ryzen 7 Pro 6850U inside can pull up to 50 or even 65 watts in performance modes, so cooling is not just an afterthought here. Overall, build quality feels solid, there's very little flex, and it doesn't look out of place on a clean desk setup or a living room media shelf. Now let's talk specs, because this is where the M7 Ultra gets interesting. Inside this little box, you're getting AMD Ryzen 7 Pro 6850U CPU with 8 cores, 16 threads, Zen 3 Plus architecture, up to 4.7 GHz boost, integrated AMD Radeon 680M GPU with 12 compute units on RDNA 2, one of the fastest integrated GPUs of its generation. 32 GB of DDR5 RAM in dual-channel SO-DIMMs, and you can upgrade to higher capacity if you need it. A 1TB M.2 NVMe SSD as standard, plus a second M.2 slot for adding another drive later on. On the rear side, the I/O is a big selling point. 2 USB-A 2.0 ports for peripherals, 1 HDMI 2.1, 1 DisplayPort 2.0, 2 2.5 gigabit Ethernet ports for advanced networking setups, 1 USB 4 Type-C ports up to 40 gigabits per second with DisplayPort output and power delivery. And on the front, a rare Ocu-Link port, which lets you hook up a full desktop graphics card in an external enclosure at near-native PCI Express 4.0 by 4 speeds. 1 USB 4 Type-C ports, up to 40 gigabits per second, with DisplayPort output and power delivery. 2 USB-A ports at USB 3.2 speed for peripherals and storage. A 3.5mm headphone mic combo jack and the power button. On the bottom, there is mounting points for mounting it to the back of a monitor, with the included bracket. Wireless is handled by Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2, so you're covered for modern routers and wireless peripherals as well. In day-to-day use, the M7 Ultra behaves like a snappy mid to high-end laptop, just without the screen. Windows 11 Pro boots quickly, apps open fast, and the 8-core Ryzen handles web browsing with dozens of tabs, office work, and even light to moderate photo and video editing with ease. Tasks like 4K YouTube playback, office documents and spreadsheets, light coding and development work, remote desktop sessions and virtualization all feel responsive, especially with that 32 GB of RAM keeping multitasking smooth. If you dock this to a good monitor and peripherals, it's absolutely capable of being your main everyday PC for a lot of users. Let's talk gaming, because that's a big reason people are looking at the M7 Ultra. I'll display the benchmark results while I go over some highlights. The Radeon 680M integrated GPU here is genuinely impressive for what it is. With dual-channel DDR5 and a reasonable power limit, you can expect, esports titles like Valorant, Counter-Strike 2, Rocket League, and Overwatch 2 to run at 1080p medium to high settings, easily above 60 frames per second, and often into triple digits. Battle Royale games and online shooters like Fortnite to hit 60 to 90 FPS at 1080p, with medium settings and upscaling enabled. Many recent AAA games at 1080p low to medium using FSR or similar upscaling, landing in the mid-30s to 60 FPS range depending on the title. Is this a 4K Ultra monster? Of course not. It's still an integrated GPU. But for casual gaming, indie titles, older AAA games, and emulation, the 680M holds up shockingly well in such a tiny box. As usual, I ran this machine through my barrage of LLMs using LM Studio, and here is the results. Nothing out of the ordinary, but this is not the type of hardware you would want to use for running LLM anyway. For DaVinci Resolve Studio, scrubbing around a 1080p timeline was smooth and without any noticeable delay. However, if you plan on editing 4K timeline, this system will struggle quite a bit. A 4-minute project took 41 minutes to export using the YouTube 4K preset. The same clip took 9.5 minutes to render in the 1080p YouTube preset. Keep in mind that both of these exports do not have any upscaling enabled. Power and thermals can make or break a mini PC, so let's cover that. Day-to-day use and even lighter gaming keeps fan noise quite reasonable, more of a low whoosh than a high-pitched whine. Under sustained heavy load in performance mode at 70+ watts, you will hear the fans ramp up to around 36 decibel, but for most users it's still very quiet, especially if the mini PC is under or behind a monitor. Thermals stay within safe ranges, with the CPU and iGPU boosting well as long as airflow around the unit isn't completely blocked. It's not a silent PC under load, but it's significantly better behaved than many older or cheaper mini PCs. So, who should actually buy this mini PC? The GMKtec NucBox M7 Ultra shines for desk setups where you want full Windows performance in a tiny, clean footprint. Living room media centers that can handle 4K streaming, emulation, and some couch gaming. Home lab and networking enthusiasts who want dual 2.5 gig ports in a compact, efficient box. Students and remote workers who need a capable, upgradable PC but don't want a laptop. It's less ideal if you need high-end AAA gaming without any external GPU. In that case, look at systems with discrete GPUs or plan budget for an eGPU. Let's break it down with some quick pros and cons, but this time I'll walk you through it instead of just rapid-firing a list. On the positive side, this mini PC is built around a strong 8-core, 16-thread Ryzen 7 Pro 6850U CPU, so you're getting serious multi-threaded performance for productivity and light content creation. Pair that with the Radeon 680M integrated graphics, and you've got surprisingly capable visuals for esports titles, lighter AAA games, and even emulation. It also shines when it comes to connectivity and expandability. You get an Oculink port for high-bandwidth eGPU setups, which means you can plug in a desktop-class GPU later if you want to turn this into a tiny powerhouse. On top of that, you've got dual USB 4, HDMI 2.1, and DisplayPort 2.0, so running multiple high-resolution monitors is no problem. Networking is equally stacked. Dual 2.5 gigabit Ethernet for fast, reliable wired connections, plus Wi-Fi 6E and Bluetooth 5.2 for modern wireless support. Inside, it stays flexible, the RAM is upgradable, and there are dual M.2 NVMe SSD slots, so storage isn't going to be a bottleneck anytime soon. All of this comes in a compact plastic chassis that keeps thermals and noise reasonably under control in normal use, and you even get a Windows 11 Pro license included, so you're ready to go out of the box. Of course, it's not perfect. Wi-Fi performance can be a bit inconsistent between units, so if you care about stability, you'll really want to lean on Ethernet where possible. Under heavier loads, especially in performance mode, the fans can become noticeable, and a small number of users have reported units that are outright noisy. The included SSD is only PCIe 3.0, so while it's fine for everyday use, it's not taking full advantage of what faster PCIe 4 drives can offer. And although Oculink support is fantastic for eGPUs, remember you still need to buy your own enclosure and a compatible power supply, which adds to the overall cost. Finally, the pricing lands in a zone where it can start to overlap with newer mini PCs or even entry-level discrete GPU builds. So while the feature set is impressive, you'll want to compare it carefully against alternatives to make sure it's the right value for your specific use case. Overall, the GMKtec NucBox M7 Ultra 32GB plus 1TB configuration is a very compelling mini PC for people who want flexibility. On its own, it's a fast, compact desktop replacement that handles productivity, media, and moderate gaming. Add an external GPU over Beelink and it can punch far above its size, turning into a true gaming or creator powerhouse in all its glory. If you're planning to pick one up, I'd love to know how you're going to use it. As a gaming rig, a media center, or a home server? Drop your plans and questions in the comments below. If you found this review helpful, don't forget to like the video, subscribe to the channel, and ring the bell so you don't miss future deep dives on mini PCs, handhelds, and more. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next one.